Hey, Nomies. For the last few weeks, it's been a constant battle with the weather. We've had rainfall, showers, thunderstorms that really disrupted any kind of work schedule I might have put together to be working on Pearl. But still, we've managed to do a little bit between the rainfall. Just last week, we got our emergency brake cable back into the correct position. Kinda. Still needs a little fine tuning. And I'm hoping maybe we can get to that this week and get it taken care of so that we can ultimately take care of the parking brake problem, and that will allow us to start layering in the other components in Pearl's left rear brake drum, and we'll get it all back together, get the wheels back on her, and then maybe we can worry about changing the springs and the pads in the right brake drum. I'm not even thinking that far ahead at this point, though. So, here's what I'd like to do today before we even try to get started. And it's looking like rain again this afternoon, so chances are it's going to be tomorrow before we can actually get back under Pearl and do some work. But in advance of that, I want to get into my trusty service manual here in the brake section, and let's review the parking brake assembly and exactly what we can expect to get into in trying to get this assembly back together, okay? It's got to be a very braking situation with no break dancing, because I don't do that. And it's a good thing, trust me, it's a very good thing. Stick around here on the MT and Me. So thank you once again for joining us here on the MT and Me. And I got to tell you, Nomies, couldn't do it without you. You're the ones that make it work. Love you guys. Give me likes, subscribe if you haven't, and I do appreciate you following each and every week here on YouTube. Now, what we want to do today is talk a little bit about what the book says concerning parking brakes before we actually get under Pearl and try to do something to the parking brake. Seems like a good idea to me. So let's open to the brake section, see what we can find. Now, these are sections I've already showed you concerning the Bendix Duo Servo brake. There's that big exploded view of everything. Remember, we were looking at this when we were trying to locate an anchor bolt nut, which thank goodness we finally did. And here's the parking brake arm, the part that we're trying to get hooked back up now. Eventually, whenever we get everything in place, it should look something like this. That's a completed assembly. Not exactly a picture, but drawn out. So hopefully we can achieve that goal. I don't know. Now, the section on the parking brake is in the very back. How do we build? There we are. Parking brake. Okay. Parking brake adjustment. Before any attempt is made to adjust the parking brake, through a thorough inspection of all the parts is needed. Raise the vehicle, we've already done that. Loosen the adjustment until there is a slack to each cable. Haven't really done that yet. Correctly adjust the rear wheel brakes. Well, we don't have them installed to adjust yet. Tighten cable, adjusting at the equalizer until parking brake handle apply effort is in accordance with the following table, and it gives you For the 300, it says it should be somewhere around 5 pounds pulling pressure. Okay, not sure how we measure that. Here's what I want you to see, though, more than anything else. This is the assembly we have under Pearl right here. You see there's a little T connector. Now this cable comes from the parking brake lever, which is here in the cab. And then it goes into this T connector, and you have two cables. One branches off to the right rear wheel, and one branches off to the left rear wheel. It's the left one that we have disconnected, and we have to hook back together. These cables have a little ball on the end of it. They slide into a slot and lock in place on this piece they call an equalizer bar. And then, of course, it's held in tension by a very powerful spring here. Plus, this entire cable assembly is under quite a bit of tension just because of the parking brake assembly. So, that gives us a little bit of background perspective on what to expect when we get back under Pearl. Now, the other day, when we were working under there, I looked at that entire assembly briefly, just to kind of verify that it's all still there, and it's pretty well assembled, except for the fact that the tension is loosened on it overall, and of course that cable going to the left rear wheel that we're working on is completely disconnected. So the goal here is to get it reconnected to that equalizer bar, get it secured, get it evened out. In other words, get the pull on both rear tires equalized, hence the name of the bar. And once we have that done, that should put our entire brake assembly inside the drum in the correct position. When we have that and we're sure it's there, then we can start layering other pieces in on top of it. But I do want to be sure it is, well, as sure as I can be, that it is in the proper condition and position before I start trying to reassemble all the rest of that brake stuff, the springs and the shoes and everything, because that's going to be a challenge to me in itself. And I sure don't want to have to take it all out and do it over again just because I screwed up something hooking up the parking brake. So, not today, but maybe tomorrow, if the weather lets us, we'll get under Pearl and see what we can accomplish. All right, Nomies. So we're back out here at Pearl today with a limited amount of time and some more threatening weather. Well, after all, it is springtime, so we're just not going to get around those possible showers and thunderstorms. Well, some of them are starting to get close, but before they close in here, there's something I want to do that I was just showing you in reviewing the emergency brake repair procedure in the Pearl manual. All right. I want to get under Pearl and get that cable to the left rear parking brake reconnected into that little T-shaped piece where it has to hook in, the one that pulls evenly on both the rear brakes whenever you set the parking brake. It may be a simple task. To say what I have to do, it sounds very simple. However, there's a lot of tension on that parking brake, and the associated cables. There's some pretty powerful springs down there, and I'm going to be fighting them. So this may turn into a little more of a job than I anticipate. First thing we need to check is to be sure the parking brake is completely off. Now this is the handle for that. The way this works is you pull it up, and I'm not going to pull it completely up, but it actually pulls up straight out and locks in place, and that means the brake is on. Well, we want it off, so this way we know it's completely down. The spring tension pulls it back. Brake is off, so that means that parking brake cable is extended as far back as it can go, so we ought to be able to work on it. And I do mean ought to be able to work on it. Let's find out. Okay. One of my favorite places, on the ground under Pearl. Now, push the camera back just a little bit, and tell you what we're going to do. The parking brake connection is right up here. Now, as you can see, this wire is disconnected. It's the one that goes to the drum we're working on over here. It goes in here in this little slot. Now, to do that, we're going to have to bend this back and compress it some to slide it in. The first thing we have to do is take this nut and bolt out, because this is plugging the hole that that little ball right there has to slide through. Okay, so there's that. Now, the fun part, the easy part, simply bending that back and getting that in there. Let's be sure this is pulled as far as we can get it. Well, that would almost work if my wrench wasn't in the way. Let's do this. And we get that ball through that hole. Just not quite gonna go. Okay. So, let's go any further at all. Oh, look at there. It did. Okay. Apparently, I have to get that straight on with that hole in order to get it through there. Come, there we go, there we go, there we go, now it's there. Okay, alright, so that's there. But our alignment, I think, is completely off, because this really should be evened up. So now I need to get this cable pulled back into place. So first thing I need to do, before I forget about it, is put this back in. Okay. That way, we'll be sure that the cable we just struggled to put into place will not come back out. So, with all of that reconnected, now I think we have to go back to the brake drum here, get on the outside, and see what our wiring connection looks like there so that we can get it all hooked back up. Great. I get to crawl some more. Okay. Well, we're still connected. That's good. This. Probably needs to go back some. It's not wanting to move. Yeah. Well, there's a good thing. I do know that spring is in the right place now. So, let me see if I can close that up a little bit more. I'm not going to do it with those pliers. Do something a little heavier. So, we'll get to that a little bit later. There's one thing I do want to show you over here, though. Remember what I was telling you about the spring holding this in place? And see, that's exactly what it's doing. There's that little piece there fitting over the edge of the brake handle. And the spring keeps tension on that so that this little plug stays connected to the handle. At least we got it hooked back up, and that means that once we get the rest of the little details taken care of, maybe we can start looking at putting some springs and brake shoes back in position. But I will admit to you right up front that I'm rather apprehensive about that job. Several reasons here. One, as I pointed out before, I've never done it before, so it's a whole new experience for me. That is not so much a source of anxiety. I like new experiences. I like learning as I go. That's not a problem. What I worry about more than anything is that I'm going to get all this reassembled and put back in, and then realize that, oh man, that parking brake is still not right. And I'm going to have to take everything back out in order to get to it, because it is, how do I put this? It's basically the bottom layer of the brake assembly. You get it hooked up like it is now, or get it hooked up properly at least. And then everything else goes in kind of on top of that, okay? Or at least in addition to it. So yeah, you got to have it in there and have it all set up and adjusted and ready to go before you go any further. And I wanted to get out here today and take care of that little bit of work, which fortunately it turned into really a relatively small job. I really didn't know what to expect. I wasn't sure how much trouble I was going to run into getting that cable here, this brake cable, hooked back up on the little T-frame mounting that pulls. What it does is it pulls both cables on the rear wheels so that you, whenever you set the parking brake, it locks both brakes. And therefore, you do need to have it evened up and have the tension even between the two. So yeah, I got a little more research to do, and then obviously a little more adjusting to do on that. And it's quite obvious that I'm not going to get to do that today. I'm starting to feel a little bit of misty rain, and radar shows thunderstorms coming in pretty quickly So about the time I got in the middle of something here, I'd have to stop anyway. So I'll stop where I am, cover this back over, and consider this one small step for Russ in getting Pearl's brakes back in action. One more small step. Like I said, every little bit is progress. Slow, but sure. Yeah. Oh, look. It's raining again. Well, how about that? You can tell I'm real surprised. And of course that means no work today on Pearl. It's actually kind of a gentle rain right now. We had some really severe stuff come through last night. Even had a tornado warning. Fortunately, it was just a warning and not a storm. But for today, things are soaked. And I think the thunder signals that it ain't over yet. So we'll let it slide. And I'm also going to call it quits for the week here today because the next couple of days is going to be pretty busy getting set for this weekend. It's that annual Armadillo Festival time. Yes, indeed. Hamburg will celebrate its 55th annual Armadillo Festival. And, of course, we'll take you there with some highlights next time around here on DMT and Me. Hope you'll join us. In the meantime, I hope it's dry where you are. Take care of yourselves, all right? Thanks, as always, for watching. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And join us each and every week. Till next time around, I'm a slightly damp Russ, and we will talk later.